I saw the patterns of my life and how I had lived, trying to please others and suppressing my own needs and desires. I was doing everything to gain their approval, but I never truly accepted myself. This was my biggest realization. I had lived for others, not for myself. Anita Moorjani. Anita Moorjani is a renowned author and speaker known for sharing her extraordinary near-death experience, NDE, which transformed her life. Her NDE occurred in 2006, when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, specifically lymphoma, and was in the final stages of the disease. Her story has inspired millions of people worldwide, as she emphasizes the profound lessons she learned during her NDE. She was born in Singapore and raised in Hong Kong. She experienced a successful career and a relatively normal life, but in 2002, she was diagnosed with cancer. Despite undergoing multiple treatments like chemotherapy and traditional medical practices, her condition worsened. By 2006, Anita's body was severely deteriorated due to cancer, and she was placed in a coma after her organs began to shut down. Her situation became critical, and doctors gave her just hours to live. While in a coma, she underwent an extraordinary experience that she later described as a profound NDE. Anita describes a vivid and incredibly peaceful experience during her NDE. As she passed out of her body, she felt a sense of detachment from her physical self. She was not fearful or in pain, and in fact, she felt an overwhelming sense of love and understanding. According to her, "I suddenly found myself floating above my body. I could see myself lying there with the doctors and nurses trying to save me, but I didn't feel any fear or pain. I felt completely peaceful and detached." She wasn't just dreaming, she was fully aware, watching her physical body from above, but there was no attachment to it. She felt a profound peace, something she had never experienced before. In that moment, she wasn't just an observer of her physical self, she was connected to something much bigger. That was when she spoke about her now famous quote that we mentioned earlier, where she reflected on the patterns of her life and how she had spent it trying to please others while suppressing her own needs and desires. She admitted that she had been doing everything to gain people's approval, yet she had never truly accepted herself. According to her, that was her biggest realization. I had lived for others, not for myself. In that moment, Anita said she understood that she was not here to seek approval or live in fear of judgment. She needed to start living authentically, listening to her inner truth, and embracing who she truly was. This was a major turning point in her understanding of life and what truly mattered. One of the most profound aspects of Anita's NDE was her deep sense of connection with the universe. She said she felt an overwhelming unity with everything around her. She explains it this way: "I experienced the most intense sense of love and connection with everything around me. I was not separate from anyone or anything. I was part of a much larger energy that connected all of us." Anita realized that everything in the universe is interconnected, and we are all part of this grand, loving energy. There was no judgment, no anger, only pure, unconditional love. This experience made her understand that true peace and happiness come from recognizing our oneness with the universe and embracing love, both for ourselves and others. One of the most touching and transformative parts of her NDE involved an encounter with her late father, which she also shares in her book, Dying to Be Me. Before her NDE, Anita said she had a strained relationship with her father, according to her. He was a very traditional and stern figure in her life, and she felt that he never truly approved of her. Her father had high expectations of her, and in Anita's mind, it seemed that no matter what she did, he always found something to criticize. This lack of approval created a sense of frustration and pain for Anita throughout her life. When Anita found herself on the other side during her NDE, she experienced a powerful and transformative moment with her father, one that would bring deep healing and insight. As she crossed over, she describes being enveloped in an overwhelming sense of peace and love. The boundaries between her and the divine dissolved. She was no longer just Anita Moorjani, the human being with cancer. She was a part of something much greater, a unity with the universe that transcended time, space, and identity. It was in this state of pure love that Anita encountered her father. Anita writes, "When I saw my father, I was stunned. He was standing in front of me, looking the same as I remembered him. But the strangest part was that I felt no judgment or condemnation from him. Instead, there was an overwhelming sense of love and understanding coming from him. What was truly remarkable about this encounter was the shift in the dynamic between Anita and her father. She had always carried the burden of feeling like she was never good enough for him. But on the other side, Anita experienced a completely different side of her father, one that was full of love, acceptance, and understanding. Her father, who had always been emotionally distant and critical in life, was now standing before her with open arms, not to criticize or judge, but to offer love. Anita felt a profound sense of healing as she realized that in his final moments, her father was not only embracing her, but also acknowledging the struggles she had faced in trying to gain his approval. He no longer saw her through the lens of criticism, but instead recognized her for who she truly was. Her father communicated to her non-verbally, as words were not necessary in this realm. She felt that he understood her pain and that he had always wanted to love her, but his own limitations had prevented him from showing it. In this moment, Anita was filled with compassion for him, and she recognized that his critical nature had come from his own unresolved issues. She realized that her father had lived a life burdened by his own fears and insecurities, which had prevented him from expressing love in the way Anita had needed. In her book, she shares, "What I saw and felt was a man who had struggled just as I had. Someone who had been living in a state of fear and suffering, just as I had. He wasn't the judgmental, strict father I had always known. Instead, he was a soul filled with love and regret for not having shown me that love during his life." This encounter with her father was one of the most healing moments of her NDE. She realized that love and forgiveness were at the heart of everything, even relationships that were strained, even with people who had caused her pain. On the other side, all the barriers that separated people, such as judgment, pride, and ego, melted away in the presence of divine love. In this realm, there was only understanding, acceptance, and healing. During this experience, Anita said she also learned something that would change her life forever. There is no judgment on the other side, only love and understanding. Her father's previous lack of approval didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the love that transcended his earthly criticisms. She realized that, in the end, all of the external pressures and expectations we place on ourselves or receive from others are not what matters. What matters is the love we feel for ourselves and the understanding we have for each other. She writes, "I understood in that moment that our love is eternal, beyond time and space. I forgave him and myself for everything. In the end, we all want the same thing, to be loved and to love in return." Through this encounter, Anita came to understand a deeper truth about the nature of life, death, and relationships. When we leave this world, we are no longer bound by the limitations of our earthly existence. On the other side, we are free from the judgments we impose on ourselves and each other. There, we are united in a love that transcends all earthly struggles and misunderstandings. Her encounter with her father was not just a healing moment for Anita, but it also reminds us that all relationships, no matter how strained or broken, can be healed with love and understanding. Whether it's with family members, friends, or even ourselves, the capacity for healing is limitless when we approach relationships from a place of compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness. After experiencing this deep love and connection, Anita said she was given a choice: to stay in this beautiful, peaceful realm or to return to her physical body. As she says, "I was reluctant to return because the peace I felt was so overwhelming. But I knew that I had more to do here on earth, and I chose to come back." And so, she chose to return, knowing that she still had a purpose to fulfill. When Anita woke up, her recovery was nothing short of miraculous. The doctors were astonished to find that her cancer was completely gone. The tumors had shrunk, and her body began to heal at a pace they had never seen before. Within weeks, she was cancer-free. In her own words, "When I woke up, I felt like a completely different person. My body was healing, and I knew that the healing had come from within me. It was my spiritual awakening that allowed my body to recover." Anita credits this miraculous recovery to the spiritual insights she gained during her NDE. She believes that the emotional and psychological stress she had been holding on to for years, fear, guilt, and trying to please others, was a significant factor in the development of her cancer. By letting go of these negative emotions and embracing self-love and acceptance, she healed not just spiritually, but physically as well. When she was asked whether she had seen the white light that many people who experience near-death experiences, NDEs, often speak about, she responded with deep contemplation. She explained that while she didn't see a literal white light, she experienced something far more profound. A radiant, all-encompassing presence that filled her with an overwhelming sense of peace, love, and understanding. She described it as a state of pure awareness, where she felt completely connected to everything and everyone. In that moment, she saw her life with absolute clarity, realizing how every choice, emotion, and experience had shaped her journey. Instead of a tunnel leading to a bright light, she felt as though she had merged with an infinite, loving energy that held no judgment, only wisdom and acceptance. For her, this experience wasn't about a physical vision of light, but rather an awakening to a greater truth, one that transcended the limitations of the human experience. One of the most significant messages from Anita's experience is the importance of self-love and self-acceptance. In her NDE, she learned that we don't need to seek approval from others to feel validated. Instead, we need to love and accept ourselves fully, just as we are. She says, when you love yourself, you release the need for others' approval. You don't need to seek validation from anyone else. And when you truly love yourself, you align with your true purpose. Her NDE also showed her how fear had ruled her life and how it had contributed to her illness. Fear, she realized, blocks the flow of life. She had spent much of her life trying to avoid disapproval and criticism, which created stress and negativity. Letting go of fear was essential for her healing. As she explains, fear is an energy that blocks everything good. It prevents us from living authentically. When we let go of fear, we open ourselves to the true flow of life and healing. After her NDE, she embraced the idea that we cannot fully heal unless we accept and love ourselves as we are. She emphasizes that self-love is not selfish. Rather, it is essential for both spiritual and physical health. When we start living for ourselves, honoring our own needs, and accepting our inherent worth, we open the door to healing on all levels: mental, emotional, and physical. In her words, when we accept ourselves, love ourselves, and stop seeking validation from others, we release the burdens we've been carrying. This is when true healing happens. Life has a way of pulling us in different directions. From a young age, we are taught to seek approval, to fit in, to be liked, to be accepted. We learn that success is measured by how others see us, how well we meet expectations, and how much validation we receive from the outside world. And in the pursuit of this approval, many of us lose sight of who we truly are. Her story is a reflection of this universal struggle. She spent years trying to please others, suppressing her own desires and needs, believing that if she could just make everyone around her happy, she would find happiness herself. But the truth is, when we abandon ourselves in favor of others' expectations, we are left with an emptiness that no amount of external validation can fill. She described a moment of awakening, a realization that she had been living for others, not for herself. And this realization changed everything. It forced her to confront a truth that many of us spend our whole lives avoiding, that self-acceptance, self-love, and authenticity are the keys to true fulfillment. Not the approval of others, not the validation of society. So how do we apply this to our own lives? How do we step away from the patterns that keep us trapped in cycles of self-denial, fear, and unfulfilled desires? How do we stop living for others and start living for ourselves? The first step is awareness. Most of us go through life on autopilot, conditioned by years of programming that tells us who we should be, how we should act, what we should want. We absorb these expectations from our families, our cultures, our workplaces, and our social circles. We are taught that we must be good, we must be successful, we must be worthy, and we define these words not by our own standards, but by those imposed upon us. But what happens when we finally pause, when we stop long enough to listen to our own inner voice? For her, this moment of pause happened in a profound way, through a near-death experience. But we don't have to wait for a life-altering event to start listening to ourselves. We can create that space now. We can ask ourselves the hard questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly want? What makes me feel alive? What fears are holding me back? The answers to these questions may not come easily. Many of us have buried our true desires so deep that we no longer recognize them. But the journey to self-awareness is not about finding instant clarity. It's about allowing ourselves to explore without judgment. The second step is courage. Recognizing that we are living for others is one thing. Taking action to change it is another. Fear often holds us back from embracing our authenticity. The fear of rejection. The fear of disappointing those we love. The fear of stepping into the unknown. She faced this fear head-on. When she saw the patterns of her life laid out before her, she could have ignored them. She could have continued on the same path, choosing comfort over truth. But she didn't. She acknowledged what wasn't working, and she made a choice to change. We too have that choice. Choosing ourselves doesn't mean abandoning others. It doesn't mean we stop caring, stop loving, or stop contributing to the lives of those around us. It simply means we stop betraying ourselves in the process. It means setting boundaries where needed, speaking up when our truth needs to be heard, and allowing ourselves the freedom to pursue what genuinely fulfills us. And this leads us to the third step, self-acceptance. One of the most profound aspects of her experience was the unconditional love she felt, not from the world, but from within. She realized that she had spent so much of her life seeking approval from others when what she truly needed was approval from herself. How often do we criticize ourselves? How often do we tell ourselves we are not enough? That we need to be more successful, more attractive, more accomplished, more perfect? But what if we are already enough? What if the key to happiness is not in changing ourselves, but in embracing ourselves fully? Flaws, imperfections, and all. The journey to self-acceptance is not an easy one. It requires us to let go of the masks we wear, to release the shame we carry, and to step into our true selves without apology. It requires us to understand that we are worthy of love, respect, and happiness, not because of what we achieve or how others see us, but simply because we exist. The fourth step is learning to trust. When she was asked about the white light, something many near-death experiencers describe, her answer was deeply profound. She did not see a tunnel of light leading to another realm. Instead, she experienced something far greater, a sense of connection, a state of awareness that transcended the physical world, an understanding that everything was as it should be. This is the lesson we can take from her story. Trust. Trust that we are on the right path, even when we feel lost. Trust that the universe is guiding us, even when we can't see the way forward. Trust that we are exactly where we need to be, learning exactly what we need to learn. Too often, we resist. We try to control every outcome. We worry about the future. We cling to old fears. But when we learn to surrender, to trust that life is unfolding in our favor, we open ourselves to infinite possibilities. And this brings us to the final step, living with purpose. After her experience, she didn't return to life the same person. She couldn't. She had seen the truth too clearly. She understood that life is not about playing small, about pleasing others, about conforming to expectations. Life is about living fully, embracing every moment, and walking a path that is truly our own. We must ask ourselves, are we living with purpose? Are we waking up each day with intention? Are we making choices that align with our true selves? Are we using our time in a way that fulfills us? If the answer is no, then it's time to change. Her story is not just an extraordinary account of a near-death experience. It is a wake-up call for all of us. A reminder that we are here for a reason, that we have a unique purpose to fulfill, that we must stop waiting, stop hesitating, and start living. So let today be the day. The day you choose to listen to yourself. The day you choose courage over fear. The day you accept yourself fully. The day you trust the journey. The day you start living on your own terms. Because life is too short to be lived for others. It is meant to be lived for you. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more eye-opening content. Like this video to support the message and share it with others who need to hear it. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know your perspective on this powerful lesson. Your voice matters. Thank you.